afternoon.
Hi.
I would like to welcome you all to our first seminar for the academic year 2019-2020 for the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Research Group. We are privileged today to have our distinguished scholar Özge from Ankara Beyazıt University. And I will hand over to her as she takes us through the interaction of art and entrepreneurship, figure and ground perspective.
Welcome everybody to come here today, and I'm happy to be a part of the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Research Group. And today I'm going to talk about my research area and some related items of art and entrepreneurship. I'm working on art industry in terms of innovation, entrepreneurship and creativity, and some dimensions, some concepts is going to come together and I'm going to integrate them and get some insights from art industry to business. So why I wanted to talk about a metaphor like figure and brand perspective is a thing. So a metaphorical atmosphere is going to be held on in the seminar today. So because I'm focusing on the some dilemmas and the individual versus environment. So we can consider ground as the environment and figure as the subject of that environment some way. And entrepreneurs and both the artists are something like that. So they are the emerging objects, or they are the subject, active subject of that area. So they are appearing and they are coming to the land with their core essence. So I'm going to talk about that. The both conceptual and practical relationship between art and entrepreneurship is going to be a side of that structure. And at the end, this metaphor from figure and brand perspective is going to find a way as an insight from art industry as a castle window metaphor. So as you know, in psychology, Gestalt psychology, there is one of the rules as figure and ground perspective, and we can consider if we see a circle or a hole. So it depends to perception of the individuals and which are in a part of the ground, and also it is related with the how the shape, size and the location of the figure or the ground appears. So ground is something that we see as similar parts. Even there are lots of different parts, we can see them all as a similarity. So the figure comes alive and survive in that ground with the differentiated parts. So entrepreneurs are the individuals like that, and the artists are similarly the individuals like that. So sometimes, in another way, in that metaphor, sometimes art appears from the entrepreneurial environment, and sometimes entrepreneurship appears with the help or the value created by the art. So there is different arrows that comes from each other. So how art creates value for entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship creates value for art is a thing that we are going to talk about. So I thought that art has a creative perspective and it is the core essence, core part of the innovation. Why? When we come to the innovation as the outcome of the process, we need creative thinking and the ideas. And the main focus of the creativity is related with the artistic, unique, original views that comes from extraordinary individuals of the ground. So art as a perspective create some values for the businesses to make them differentiated, to make them different, unique, and create more radical innovations than the others. Why? Because in the business we are talking about the competition concepts and making different than the others, or differentiating than the others. And what about the entrepreneurship? How entrepreneurship creates values for art? So, entrepreneurial behavior is related with risk-taking as art has done. So in entrepreneurial behavior, you are also trying to make art more appeared in the ground and in the marketplace. So art entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurs in the art industry works for the art. And art entrepreneurship also creates value for art to make art together with the society. So there is a gap between art and society, always, in any times. So with the entrepreneurial businesses related with art, we can close these gaps more, I think. Because art has a value in terms of culture and economic value, even be thought as a product, and a product can be a cultural value or an economic value in terms of ambidextrous nature. So it's a kind of social value creation. So it's a kind of, so any art-related entrepreneurs are related with social value creation and social entrepreneurship because of the nature of art and how art works for the society and enlarge the view of the society. And today I'm going to talk about an art-based view and integrate that view with the business. So the relationship can be seen more easily or more clearly. So while creativity, entrepreneurship, innovation, and value creation are the popular and shining up terms of the business field, there is still a gap between art and business. And art has a potential to provide some insights to business, especially in terms of entrepreneurship and marketing. Why? Because they are the most dynamic part of the process. And we can consider that marketing as an exchange process, exchanging values, and all artists exchange values, their values with the society, with the other side. By that perspective, we can consider artists as a marketer, and also we can consider artists as an entrepreneur by the behavior of the entrepreneurial dimensions when we consider risk-taking, innovativeness, and proactiveness. So I considered an artist as an entrepreneurial marketing by combining both entrepreneurship and marketing and try to find the way of their survival. So remembering the first stage, all figures tries to be survived in the ground and how the entrepreneurs and the artists become survive in that atmosphere. Lots of definitions about entrepreneurship as a process and a way of life and presentation of something that has not been presented yet. So this is related with something original, unique and innovative, so we can find something related with in art industry or art life of the artist. Or innovation is the outcome of entrepreneurship process when we consider entrepreneurship in terms of the process. So this outcome, you can create something new, different, etc. But what is the value of it? So we can also find some value and new value creations when again turn back to the art. So we can get lots of insight from art industry. So when Turner defines innovation as an activity that adds values to welfare of a firm or a society. Okay, again we are talking about how art creates value to society and how it interacts with that and how entrepreneurship works for that interaction. So these definitions directly link art with entrepreneurship, innovation, and entrepreneurial marketing. An art-based approach analyzes is also very interesting and insightful to understand this process. So I focus to artist lives, philosophies, practices to generate something interesting for that data. And these biographical data are very popular in entrepreneurship. Why? Because entrepreneurs are again extraordinary individuals of that ground as the figures. So art has a potential to contribute when we consider together entrepreneurial marketing literature, both as a concept and a perspective related with the creativity, and both as an industry, art as a total industry with its both cultural and economical values and products, and artists as an entrepreneurial marketing. So when we understand the artist's behavior, we can also understand an entrepreneurial behavior in a different way. So there is a triangle and some different links and arrows comes together in literature. What happens? So we can see that some improvements going on to some arrows directed to contribution of marketing and entrepreneurship to art, to make the art a figure in that ground, and also in the other way some contributions comes to art, to marketing and entrepreneurship, to make the business more creative and more different than still that occurs in the marketplace. So the emergence of the figures, both art and entrepreneurship, has some dependencies to that ground. So what we put to that ground is important as both to create value for each side. So how insights from art is possible? A biographical research that's coming on in here. So I focus to innovation and legitimacy and some dilemmas. So both innovation is a part of the entrepreneurship, and both it is important for the art. And legitimacy still. When you are getting risk, it is related with the risk of being legitimate in the marketplace, because you are coming with a different value and a new value, which means that how it's going to be accepted by the others in the ground. So you are trying to survive as a figure, but what the ground says to that. So it's important, and the artists or the entrepreneurs try to get this risk and try to survive with their own ideas, their own core essence, etc. So extraordinary artists is related with a survival context. So even we can consider that, yes, all artists are extraordinary, but what about extraordinary artists? Even when we consider every area as a marketplace, and if we say ground, so we can also see some different figures that appears in the art industry. So we can find extraordinary artists even in art industry. So unique characteristics of the individuals are important, and even Toby and Cosmin says that each human was designed to be an artist. So what can we understand, or what can we find related to human behavior in an artist? All are unique, all are different, all wants to market our ideas to the outside in different perspectives. And all have a potential to be an artist, also an entrepreneur. But some, but not the others, is another issue of the entrepreneurship that we have discussed. Even is possible and potential, why some becomes entrepreneur when the others could not. So when we consider society, and when we consider the population in there, so art is a niche area that comes in here. So artists are the extraordinary individuals of the society as the entrepreneurs, and art is a niche industry. But when we focus to art industry here more, we can find another niche in here, extraordinary artists, which means that even, we can talk about lots of artists, but some are again different in that area. So I'm trying to understand in that way, and as a phenomenon existing in all cultures, art is universal. So if we are focusing to something universal, we can get general insights for business or for other disciplines. So this is the thing that art works for many dimensions, and it is not related with the popularity. So we are not focusing the popularity of the art, but we are talking about the universal values, individual values that comes from art as the potential enlightenment that creates value for the others, individual to individual, and also in long-term, individual to humanity. So instead of talking about well-known artists or commercial brands, focusing to a really extraordinary artist that is not too much commercial but well known with their extraordinary behaviors in the art industry is a thing that I try to focus and understand. So philosophies and practices of the artists can give some insights about this uniqueness and the universality of art comes together. So survival of the few by entrepreneurial marketing is the focus of the study, and there is a dilemma between innovation and legitimacy, as I've told. So why I give the name of purple dilemma between innovation and legitimacy? It comes from some business terms, business concepts. Red Queen effect, as we know, it's related with competition, and another related terms with the competition is blue ocean strategy. So one says another thing and the other says another thing, but market is, or the life is something like in the balance, or you need to make the balance, or how you're going to do it. Or market-driven or market-driven behaviors. Is it possible to just focus to entrepreneurial orientation or innovation orientation, or customer orientation or market orientation? What is the position, and how we make this combination is the thing that how we are going in that way. So I'm going to talk about both blue in terms of entrepreneurial individual ways, and you have some unique resources, of course, and you are trying to make the competition irrelevant. While red Queen effect says that you cannot go out of the competition and you cannot get any other position because when you compete with the others, you are in the same position and the same place. Why? Because the others also do the similar things. So you should need to go out of that area. How you can go out of that area? How you can find a safe area in that marketplace? So you need something unique, you need something different, and you can find that in your own, especially. And if you can generate that, and if you can market that in a way, so you can become an entrepreneur market. So when market driving behaviors becomes as a pioneer and a leader in the marketing and entrepreneurship business area, and market driven is related with focusing to markets, focusing to customer, which means that, yes, again, you're getting lots of insight from them, but you know them as the other knows, because the ground is similar, and you see the similar things. So when you turn to your own course, which we can consider that a different combinations of lots of factors, you can find something interesting and still in the marketplace. So you are using some resources that the others do not have. So we can talk about the castle window metaphor, and before that we can again realize the orientations that comes from blue ocean and that comes from red queen effect, and we can say that innovation and these effects are related with proactiveness of the entrepreneurship. And when we are talking about legitimacy, it means that you're not trying to get risk. And this legitimacy is related with being reactive in the marketplace. So you are trying to focus to the ground, and you know how the ground works, and you're trying to be part of that ground. But in here, you're also trying to change the ground with your figure. So radical innovations and incremental innovations in that different ways. Yeah, of course, the short-term advantages of legitimacy makes you survive. But when you consider long-term survival in the life or in art industry, in art history, so you need to be different and radical. So maybe it's possible to talk about the business industry and the other industries similar way. So entrepreneurial and individual and market in the other way. So when we come back to the grant and the figure, yeah, are you going to be a figure of that grant or not? Yeah, so we can say that many struggle with the red queen, and some or a few float on the blue ocean. So this is the reality of the life, and this is the reality of business. So competition is something like that. So who do what? So some studies also reflect the contradictory position regarding the interplay between market-driven and market-driving actions. So the combinations are also important. So the castle window metaphor works that. So when we consider castle window metaphors, we can realize and see the castle windows like that. So which means that the narrow side goes to outside and the wide side comes to inside, which means that you can get more light from the outside and you can use that light inside. And it means that you can use this light and protecting yourself in your castle. So castle window metaphors answer lots of questions related with survival and purple dilemma, but it is a way of a unique style of one individual. So we can generalize that, or we can find other different ways, because as we know that artist case is essential in terms of uniqueness, and all the pioneers are individual artists as a part of that entrepreneurial marketing process as a different actors. So real life context is an important methodology as a case study. And we can talk about how I choose the artist. Yeah, it is related with the other views in that terms as an extraordinary, well known as an extraordinary and unique style instead of a commercial, being a commercial artist. And it is not just doing an art, but it's also related with being artist, art educator, and activist. Being an activist also related with a social entrepreneurial behavior, and you are not just focusing to yourself, but also you are trying to create some different grants for the others. So this is, I think, important perspective of an artist. So how you integrate all of them and being alive, even you are not saying yes to the ground in any way. So it is occurred, the process of the research occurred with the purpose of the artistic production and style, the value creation process, gaining legitimacy, and survival strategy. All has come together, and I've checked the entrepreneurial marketing dimensions like opportunity and the statements of the artist, risk-taking and statements of the artist, innovativeness, proactiveness, and value creation and innovativeness. So, for example, I can share some of the statements that I got from the artist. I like detail and surprise in my works, because life is monotone and the role of artist is tricky. My works are my reality and integrated with me. I'm not in an effort to be an extraordinary. So while we are saying extraordinary to an artist, we can also understand that they're not trying to be extraordinary. They are just, they are. So I'm not strict to environment, but I'm consistent in myself. So even we are seeing in a different perspective in the outside, we can also consider that this is not their own view about themselves. So it's interesting, the perception as when we consider the figure and the ground. So the real fact is being as you are and taking part in the universal values of art with your own style. So it's interesting, both you're talking about your uniqueness and both are talking about being universal. So even we are, it seems like totally different terms, talking about universality and uniqueness of one individual. It comes together because human is something like that, and you are just become yourself by being yourself and behaving by yourself. So it's a part of universality. So survival of core essence and legitimacy by core essence as a core competence and as a unique and differentiated value of the people. So the battle or something like that, battle for core essence or core essence is the weapon in that battle. You are working for your core essence and yourself, but again you are using yourself as a weapon in that battle. So it's interesting the dilemma between individual and the environment also in life science. So short-term legitimacy aim is a threat against my uniqueness due to social and economic environmental rules putting pressure on me. So the narrow side of the castle windows for protection from markets when we consider market orientation and customer orientation. If you don't want to be ordinary, you should know the rules, but you have to set up new rules and build new works in order to reach the future. It's a kind of perspective of business that we are now using to make the competition irrelevant and being different. So wide side of the castle window for innovation and being extraordinary is works for you because you are protecting yourself and getting some lights, but you're using it very intensively by your way, and you are creating your own castle in that way. So legitimacy can be long-term findings. We can talk about generating and practicing about castle window metaphors, and we can see that all artists have different castles, as the castles in all around the world. So it is representing your own style, it's representing the environment and the conditions. What kind of a castle protects you, or what kind of a style you have. Because I'm from Turkey, I want to share some castles from Turkey, but we can also say that they are also related with some ancient times. So you can see different castles of Turkey. For example, it's interesting that Dardanel Castle in Çanakkale, in terms of shape, but all castles have the same window style for the protection. Yeah. So, as a metaphor, when it comes to the castle, it represents the relationship between art and society and artists. And so the castle symbolizes the freedom and the unique area of the artist, and all individual hermitage area for exploring the artist itself and the power that you have. So you are going out of the environment and focusing to yourself to find yourself and find some relationship. Then you can create a relationship with the universal values. So the harbor also is a kind of harbor to protect inside and outside values of your castle that you have built about yourself. So as the mission of the narrow castle windows, taking light and spread it to your castle and protect your core essence as an artist. So therefore castles are required to be protected in order to realize the protection function. So it's interesting lemma again. The castle protects you, but if you do not protect the castle, so everything has gone. So protecting the artist or the extraordinary artist or the entrepreneur is something like that for the society, their values. So giving value to them is another responsibility of the others in the society. It's something like supporting the heritage. yeah, it seems like very unique and individual, but yeah, when we consider the humanity, all well-known artists that are in the art history are the ones who are protected and comes together today. So societies just can be alive by the artwork that represent themselves. So if we see a castle, it means that it is related with all that geography. It's related with all that time. So universality is related with the combination of time and place that go to other times and become a history. So yeah, we can talk about the sustainability of the culture, by the way, when we are talking about the individual values. So what can I say in a different way is that the study has some values about generating an alternative concept. It can be discussable, integrating previous concepts like purple dilemma between innovation and legitimacy in both theoretical side, and explaining with another metaphor, another concept. And by the generated concept of the study and inspired lessons from unique and pioneer qualities of the individual artist, basing on the survival concept and individual nexus environment, entrepreneurial marketing theory can spread out in an interdisciplinary area. So this is important. Right now, any discipline cannot stay in their own disciplines and everything interacted with each other. And when we consider the universality of the art has a potential to create value for lots of disciplines. And when we are talking about the most popular discipline in our world as a business, so connecting that universality and together with the business and creating new values and considering the business in terms of a social business most of the time. Just not focusing the economic values, but cultural values that maybe need for us. When we consider Maslow hierarchy, yes, individually we need to go some steps through that socialized and culturalized of self-fulfillment, but societies also need that. When we are okay in terms of economic values, we are hungry for the cultural values, and we remember that. So right now in our days, the art and the culture has even a potential like that for lots of societies and the people. Even when we are saying universal, yeah, sometimes we need to get some time to make it spread out for the whole population. So at the end, it's possible to say that art is a castle both for the artists to guard their core essence and guard the society in terms of universal needs of that societies. However, the castles are different in style, parallel to artists' uniqueness. Entrepreneurial marketers views a castle battle for it's similar to artists, and art as a concept, art as an industry, and art as an entrepreneurial marketing has a potential to expand the theoretical and practical research area of entrepreneurial marketing. I want to finish with the words of the artist that I get the insight for the castle window metaphor. Unique artists, thanks to their castle and castle window, are the essential part of the universal art, cumulative heritage, as the contemporary sees in the endless forest of art that makes the forest alive and sustainable. It's hoped that castles will be the guard of the value creation and provide sustainability of the innovation. Yeah, and thank you very much, and I want to get your comments. Any questions, any comments and additions, yeah, or discussions? Yeah, please.
I'm just wondering then, I don't know whether I picked up or whether you mentioned it. I'm just wondering, are there similarities, although we looked at the entrepreneur and the artist in the same context of with regards to business and starting a business. In your research, did you manage to maybe establish what their attitudes were if they were ready towards risk?
There are lots of similarities when we consider behavior, because entrepreneurship is not related with gaining more money. It's something kind of a behavior. Entrepreneurship is a behavior and it's a process. You don't need to earn money from your entrepreneurial behavior. So when we consider that, we can just see that. Even we have told that marketing and entrepreneurship are the terms and concept that comes from with the humanity. Their history is as long as the humanity's history. So when we consider art, we can find many similarities because of the creativity. When we consider creativity as a core, so how they behave about that creativity. yes, you can have a creative idea, but if you don't have an entrepreneurial behavior, you cannot put anything to the marketplace. And when we talk about the value created, so all values are created in the marketplace, if it's possible to see. So when artists represent their ideas or feelings and put something as an artwork or anything, writing, etc., so it means that they have marketed that. So marketing is an exchange process. If there are two sides, the value is created or not created. So but something goes from one individual to other individual. So we can consider artists as a marketer. We can consider artists as an entrepreneur. When we consider these concepts out of business, and when we consider these concepts interdisciplinary and just as the concept of us. So because business is a new and a popular term, but these behaviors are the behaviors that are always going on. So more universal things that we are talking about, I thought. But of course, these popular terms of the business sometimes works for each other. And it's interesting that artists and art industry don't like even saying industry, even saying marketing, or even saying product to that. Their works, isn't it? So yeah, it's a kind of philosophy because you are trying to make it commercial. But no, I think marketing is not trying to make it commercial. It's something like representing and changing or creating a new value. And when we are saying creating a new value, it is not just related with the marketplace, but it is related with the mind of the others. So you are not creating value as a product in the marketplace, but you are creating the values or the brands in the mind of the others. So art is something like that. If you are putting or exchanging something in the mind of the other side, so yes, you have created value. But you cannot say that nobody don't understand you, so you cannot create a value for society. No, time and the place can be different. So universality of the art is something like that. Maybe we can consider the artists who couldn't understand in their time, but in another time they get the value because the other minds become possible to understand that. So value is also in terms of philosophy is something different. Yeah, mind, but which mind, when, etc. So grants, so changing the grant, or maybe long term is an answer. So understanding the dynamics in that way creates maybe some additional values.
So I've been working with Özge for a wee while now, and she's here as a visiting researcher in the business school, and we're already making connections with some people in this room and elsewhere. It's good to see some folks from the art school as well. So I've done some work in the past about metaphor, and I think the visual metaphor is fantastic. Özge is also an artist. You can see the background to some of those slides, and I think the use of metaphor is not just a visual metaphor. This could be a theoretical metaphor as well. So everything that you've talked about there, your frameworks and so on, will contribute to entrepreneurial theory development, entrepreneurial marketing theory development as well. And personally, I just love drawing from different domains outside the traditional bounds of business school type research. Yeah. So I think it enlivens what we do. Personally.
Looking outside of the areas and different combinations. Yeah, creativity is related with different combinations of the things. So you need to go out of the boxes. Yeah, we have lots of boxes, and trying to enlarge these boxes may be a way to be competitive or create new values. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And it sort of refreshes our methodologies. I was talking earlier to Mamutsu about biographical research and so on. It ties in precisely to what you've been talking about as well.
I think that's really interesting. I've been doing some work recently with the Whitworth Gallery in Manchester, a project that they're undertaking with the Manchester School of Economics, both in terms of there's a lot of talk about kind of like metaphor and all of those kind of things. It might be also interesting to kind of look at some examples of the extraordinary artists that you're talking about, which then are the examples of artists you might choose. Something like Fiesta Gates as a game changer, who's not just brought economic value to the side of Chicago, where he's changed the kind of the way they live, but also kind of cultural value and economic value as well. But he's also somebody who does very different types of work There's that show that's about to open in Liverpool about the gas gates, which is a show that kind of goes around and kind of touches on some of those practices. But he also gives fantastic TED Talks about changing environments, changing ways of thinking. Obama was somebody who's very interesting, who's very entrepreneurial in the way that you're talking about. I think that's some of what you're talking about metaphorically really actually adds another way of thinking about him in terms of an entrepreneurial activity and not just a kind of an artistic anomaly here. Doesn't do traditional stuff.
Yeah, sure. And also I want to enlarge this study with different artists and different perspectives. So when we check the different biographies and the stories and how they behave in terms of life and their art processes, so we can find different metaphors. So all can work for the entrepreneurial marketing or entrepreneurship theory and literature in a different way. So this was one of the relationship between environment and individual, and legitimacy and innovation, but maybe in different terms. We can find different ideas. So yeah, I think the individuals is very important. So focusing to individual and the cases and deeply understanding them is very important. So instead of getting data from the population that we really could not understand, is better to focus to deep life stories and understanding them in that way can work in a comprehensive look to the issues.
Because you're developing longitudinal insight, development of how these individuals are, when they're born, to educated, socialised, enter the world of art or business, whatever it might be, that you don't tend to uncover using more traditional business school research methods like the interview, focus groups, surveys.
Yeah. So,
but you can then triangulate your findings with those methods that you wish to as well.
Yeah.
Which I've done, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we are in a dynamic environment, and so we should look in a different way. We need to do that. So if we stuck on the theories or we are not say anything else in a different way, so it's going to be all in the way. The ground is going to be similar but enlarged, but same ground. So, but it's dynamic. So finding the figures in different figures. Consider an artwork. You can find lots of different figures in an artwork. So it's related with how you perceive, where you look, which one is the background and which one is the figure. So at the end of the coming future, who is or which discipline or where is going to be the figure and background. So how they are going to interact with each other and work for each other. So if there is no background, you cannot talk about the figure. So emptiness is also a background. So you need a background and you need a figure. If there is nothing in there, so nothing is also a figure. So yeah, philosophical terms of the issue, yeah.
And I just wanted to find out, as part of your research, again, you're just looking at the entrepreneurship. Is that sector specific? Does this sort of research relate to like art? Art seems very generic. Okay, entrepreneurship, it can also be seen as quite a generic, but when you looked at the entrepreneur, did you look at specific sectors, or did you say the entrepreneur cross-sector? Coming from the construction and built environment, we have yes, there's entrepreneurs in there, but there's almost, our artistic license is not as broad, if I can call it that, whereas the artist can have a broad license. And I'm just wondering, with regards to entrepreneurship, did you find that maybe it was related to specific sectors, or did you find the entrepreneurship can be cross?
Yes, in here the concept. I worked on a few different sectors in my previous research, but the art industry is the focus of my research. Generally, I'm working on art industry and the artists and the art places, areas that is related with that, and the public as a part of that. So when we consider triangle, society, art, artists, and art organizations, etc. But entrepreneurship is a kind of behavior, as I've explained in here, so we can consider it in a general term. And also I consider the art in a general term. When we consider the art, again, we can find lots of sub-disciplines and sub-areas, and all have different atmosphere, all have different dynamics. So some industries are more dynamic, so you need your innovation or value that you have created today is too much old tomorrow. So, but some industries are just the traditional industries. You should do the same always. By the way, you can be legitimate and you can be popular. For example, consider some food industries that come from some family organizations. They are survived by doing the same again and again. It's a kind of craft work. But when we are talking generally in our technological environment and competition comes together, etc. So we cannot say even which industry is going to be alive in the future. So when we consider the concepts and the terms, it is more fruitful, I think, more valuable to understand it. We are looking in a theoretical perspective to the terms and the concept, but try to understand and get some insight from the real practices and the really real as a real human practice and real life context with these cases. So yes, maybe it is not possible to say for every industry, of course, for every individual. This is just a way to look. We cannot say something like a rule or a principle for entrepreneurship, isn't it? Or anything. Just this is the principle and this is the formula. We are not talking about the formulas. We are talking about the ways of different looking or how we can find our way or building a castle. If you want, you can build a modern blocks instead of a castle, or you can talk about that. So they have different metaphors and different reasoning. So why you need to build that or generate that idea? So it's related with time, conditions, and the situations. But trying to focusing the underlined items maybe that we should underline in that seminar is focusing to your core essence. As an individual, you can find something different and valuable in here. Why? Because in the environment when you are trying to compete, every individual and other competitors, right, will see the similar things. But there is something that you have, and the others don't know that. So, and it's valuable. You can find and create something related with that. But we cannot say everybody can do that. So we have talked about, many as the society and the diagram and a few. So maybe we can put that diagram top society, or we can change the angles of that diagram. Maybe more artists, I don't know, in the future, maybe it's going to be possible, or technology and artificial intelligence, etc. Maybe the only thing is related with just you and your stories and your real life and your art. Because everything has done by the machines and artificial intelligence. Even we are talking about the discussion of artificial intelligence and artworks. Are they really art, etc. So there are lots of different questions, but so finding yourself is the thing that we need to talk about in the future, maybe more. So art is an important thing that shows a direction for people for the future. So if you are just thinking yourself like a machine in our today's working environments and works, that just they're asking you to do that, who are markets and the others, etc., the environment and ground, and you are doing that. So we are not talking about that we are really living as we are. I don't know, the questions and philosophies of life. So because entrepreneurship, business, and art is a part of life in general. And they are not a part of it. So the real thing is the human, and what's going to be that industry is in the future for the human. So the reality is not related with gaining more money by the business in the short term, maybe. So why we transform the businesses to the social businesses is the thing that we can see. So why we enlarged our customers to the society, and why we are trying to assess all individuals. Is it possible or not? So it's just a way or philosophy that we can consider and get some insight and go with another one. So changing our ways maybe, or looking perspective, just giving some insight.
I think I can understand, as you were speaking, a couple of things that come to mind with regards to an entrepreneurship approach within, although an industry such as engineering and construction. But what I've sort of come to realize is that as much as they can be specialists in one area, let's say building high-rise structures in the UK, take the same concept to a different environment. For example, the Arab Emirates or Dubai or somewhere where you're dealing with another level of extremes. I've seen engineers become artistic in problem solving, and they manage to really deal with the extreme differences. What they would have done in the UK, they've taken the whole different concept, but because of the environmental conditions, they've had to exercise more of their artistic creativity to solve problems, dealing with climatic weather conditions and things. So they've taken one form of technology out of the UK, where we have slight variances but quite moderate conditions, go into another environment where you've got completely different extremes, but so it requires a different level of artistic solution to the same technology you would have used, but being able to adapt it. Just as you were saying, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, adaptation, kind of, or transferring your technology, transferring your unique values to another place that is not in there. It's an export and import processes. But when we consider that all in, again, a human side, we can see that we are also transferring that by the art. You have something interesting about yourself and you find it. And you are transferring them to the other humans. Art is just that, transferring your technology, building technologies or engineering technologies to somewhere else. It's something like that. But when we consider the aesthetic and the first stage of creativity, yeah, in engineering, lots of areas, art and aesthetic and design is very important. Yeah, the first stage, yeah, is the creative, artistic, the original. But when you repeat something, it becomes not original. So this is the case maybe in serious mass productions. Even the most aesthetic and powerful thing become similar with the others. So the human always wants to see something unique. Maybe it's interesting. It's a kind of psychology. So you can say that, oh, wow, it's interesting, but right now, not right now. Maybe you can say that in 100 years before, 200 years before, when you see that. So it's interesting. It's all related with our perception. So we are creating our ground in every age, and then we are saying that, oh, this ground seems too much similar, so put another figure. All these figures seems like a radical innovations, and the ground seems like an incremental innovations. Yeah, then we need that to put that figure. So it's the kind of process of artistic process when you are painting that. You are creating and you are putting something different. Then it appears or disappears, so you need to build something. So it's a kind of living process of us, so I think, yeah.
So there's so many different areas of commonality between art and entrepreneurship, so things like idea generation, creativity, flexibility and so on. So definitely worthwhile continuing this exploration. I've been doing this since finished my PhD. I'm just a frustrated artist, basically. But yeah, learning from other disciplines is just fantastic. My first degree was in civil engineering,
Okay.
which I hated. I hated it. But if there was some artistic lens utilised during my studies, I might have been persuaded to stay on. But
I find civil engineers, they are the more creative. When it comes to problem solving within construction, that's what enables them to go into build developments where you're thinking they probably wouldn't have all the answers at the beginning, but as they go along, they seem to create and they create solutions.
Yeah, this is very important because also we are giving lectures to the young people and the students, etc. And the things that sometimes we see that how they are similar with each other when you see the papers or the answers, even very open-ended questions. So it's interesting. They are living in the ground in the same way, even they are unique and different individuals. For example, even the boxes that we build to them in the business schools, they're thinking that they should just write something related with business. Why? There's an interesting thing that I asked to all the students that if you have full power to do anything, what would you like to market? And it's interesting, yeah, you can market lots of things. If you have full power, means that you are do anything that you imagine, but imagination part is very low sometimes. that you get some answers like, I want to market myself, my ideas, etc. Okay, this is the thing that is related with our psychology, but I get some answers like, I want to market brand X. So because you are in a class in a business school, so what can you think out of the brands? You should market a brand, isn't it? Even you have a power, limitless power. So it is really interesting that how we teach or give lots of rules and blocks to them. So opening them, so I'm also making some social entrepreneurial activities like integrating business with art. So I'm making some interaction with art project in the business school. So trying to just, it can be art or something else, but art has a potential to enlarge their views. So trying to show them something else is going on in life. You cannot learn the business or entrepreneurship by just reading your business books and the theories. They are still done and they are in the books and in that line. So you should find your own ways. So you should find ways in the life, I think, and you shouldn't market or you shouldn't think about marketing a brand if you have a limitless power. So it's interesting, we should open the boxes, I think.
I find it really interesting, the language that's being used. I've never come across, as an artist, and I also teach in the art school, I've never come across terms like Red Queen and Blue Ocean and things like that. So that's a really new thing for me. And artists would say, I'm having an exhibition, I want to show my work. There'll be an audience, public, maybe collectors, maybe critics. They wouldn't necessarily think in terms of customers and clients. So in the same way, you're saying that business people might think in other terms, and the kind of words that you use do change how you think about things and how you apply things. So it's really interesting you're pulling these things together.
Thank you very much.
I've been working with at Liverpool, which is the music students, and then the management of performing arts. And one of the things that is to be an artist and to understand the value and what is valued is different. Is that some of the musicians just want to be musicians and they don't want to know how to make that valuable to others. They just want to be pure in their creation, and that is as important to them to be pure and be different. Whereas others are much more commercially aware about what they want from it. And the discussions of those young artists about which places, which exhibition spaces, and working with brands. So for example, Levi up in Anfield is about, well, nobody else cares, we can't make music, so we don't care if we're with commercial brands because they care about us because they give us the platform to be able to be creative. And I think that idea, we misunderstand what being entrepreneurial is, whether it's from an artistic perspective or an engineering perspective or a medical perspective. And I was fascinated at the art, one of the biennial events the other day is about it being the body, and it just happens that Liverpool going with the knowledge quarter is all about medicine in the environment, and they're moving those two languages together to have a conversation about how does the built environment seem like a body and how does art. So you can see that they're working on that definition. And maybe as business, we shouldn't be in the business school. We should be out there and everywhere else where the creativity is and learn their language rather than making our own language and putting it on, because that's where the real innovation is.
The language and the words has power to manage you and markets. They market something. This is a kind of philosophy, but the concepts in that terms, making them together, or it's possible to make them totally different and finding some more niche words that totally match with that. But if you want to make the business school students or the business related minds related with art or another disciplines, so it works for that because you are using a language that they know. So you can open, it says that, I'm not trying to say that this opens new doors to all disciplines or art, for example, but it works for business. So it creates value for entrepreneurial marketing literature from art inside, so we can enlarge this discipline in that way. But again, in practice, entrepreneurship and business, make your art figure. Why? If you market art as a value, as a cultural value, so the society and their perception is going to be different. So this can be possible with the businesses and social businesses, isn't it? So otherwise the society is not going to meet with the art in any way, just it is going to be an individual act. So if you want to do something for society, connect it with the art, we need businesses. Otherwise, yeah.
But you can see in social media, the social media marketers call it curating the space. So they use it because they're all the artists, because they're the visual artists. They're using it for commercial purposes. So the language from art is becoming business language, because being able to see visually on an app or in any sort of space or behind you some images electronically created is coming from the value at the moment from businesses is from the visual arts.
Yeah, sure.
So the words and terminology are entering business and in through the art environment. So they talk in that language because that's how they're expressing.
So the effects and the metaphors can be found in that researches, these types of researches can be enlarged, and finding a new word or explanation is another research and another thing to make them together or make them separated. Yeah, it's also possible. So why castle window metaphor? What is the relation? It can be possible to another thing. Why? Because it's related with that case. So yeah, we should try to go out of the box. But there is a huge box like global economic marketplace. So we are all thinking inside of the market perspective, isn't it? In any way, in all their life, even individual lives. So it's interesting. It is saying something alternatively is also an art, isn't it? So in that atmosphere. So Grant is really full with that market and economic perspective, and finding something out of that. Yeah, we can say, for example, we were saying that product in a market, so dynamic environments and dynamic disciplines again with business. So we change it, not a product, and we say product for the tangible, intangible, etc. and services. Right now we are saying value. So the disciplines finds their words in time and it appears. So we are talking about value creation instead of innovation. Innovation is a very technological term. If we come to value creation concept, so it means that marketing is evolved. So concepts of the marketing from production to sales, and now we are talking about societal marketing, for example. It means that it is ready right now, or in the future we can find another concept, another terms, and also as the disciplines, terms and concepts are different, and the interaction changes them. So we can find new words, we can adapt to art more, by the way, with that kind of research. So taking legitimacy of art and art-based research in business is a kind of way in that long process, maybe.
I was involved some years ago with a project where artists were invited to become part of the become part of the team on new developments, new housing developments, so that the builders and the architects could actually maybe be part of the thinking, to embrace the thinking on the research that the artists would embrace, around the area, because the sites where the artist was there before any buildings were built, and that those projects ran all the way through the UK. It was a sort of experiment to see how, if that would have any impact on the development, on the community, if the artist was there right at the start, and sort of look at the history of the site, the culture, and maybe have some input in the building and the design and stuff like that. So the project, the housing development that I was involved in happened just before the crash, and it was actually recorded throughout all these developments so the buildings work just stopped, halfway through. They only reached the first phase. So all the residents who were there were living with it. They were just surrounded still with half-built homes and sort of like mud, and it was a real mess. But they did a sort of evaluation of the project and the scheme and the idea, and they said that the community who were there said that was that actually the art and the involvement and the strategy and all the artists who were involved that actually got them through it. And also the other thing about that kind of idea is that it brings within the community some identity, link with the surrounding area, a kind of sense of belonging, as a community. So in terms of, I suppose, the value, if the team, if it works, the artists working alongside builders. And the other thing it stopped was developers just coming in and just plonking down a piece of artwork that had absolutely no relevance to the people, to the community, to the surrounding buildings. So in that way I can kind of see what your research is, for me, kind of connects with as an artist.
Yeah, it's valuable. Thank you very much. Yeah, so putting art to more different industries, maybe with keywords, and get it more from art or every stage.
Can I ask you something? Do you think all artists have to be marketers?
No, I said that, but it's related with how you told and how you define. But when I said artists, even we thought that all artists should be extraordinary, isn't it? So because they are artists. So, but when we consider the art industry or the art area again, we can find some differentiations. So when we go deeply in any place, in an area, we can find different extraordinaries, or we can find some grams of figure in every detail of a picture, for example. So we can see more extraordinary artists that comes to, but in which way extraordinary? Some can be become an extraordinary artist because of their extraordinary life, or it can be another one become extraordinary with their extraordinary materials. The other can be extraordinary because of their extraordinary perspectives or the things that they have done for society, etc. So we can find lots of different ways about what's extraordinary. So we are talking about something as ordinary or similar as ground, and something different. So we are saying uniqueness to all individual. Everyone has unique. So representing your uniqueness is something different. Yeah, all of us are unique in different conditions. Yeah, but how we are representing our ideas in a unique perspective is the thing. So we can find more and more in every detail and every step, I think. So entrepreneurial marketing, if we are talking about business side, I'm not checking in terms of commercial side as when we are saying entrepreneurial marketing. It is related with representing yourself as a behavior, taking risks, creating something new and valuable as innovation terms, or being proactive to do something. Yes, some artists has lots of ideas to do lots of valuable things at the end, but if you are not proactive and doing anything, I know as you can consider your own mind thinking something interesting, but you're not doing. So action is related to entrepreneurial side. Creativity is different side, thinking stage, and action side. And if you put them all together, you can see the results. And in that stage, you need the grant, because you are putting something, a value to that grant. And this grant sometimes says that, no, it's too much different, so we cannot accept that. Okay, so what you're going to do, what is your second step is important here. Going on or trying to be more legitimate and changing your way, which means that you are going out of your core essence and your own way. So the extraordinary artists and entrepreneurial marketers who are trying to be survive as they are, I think, in that concept. Otherwise, they can be just a marketer and focusing to market orientation and customer orientation. They can just give what the brand wants. But this is not something related with art. In short terms, they can earn too much or become popular. So being popular or being an artist is something too much different. So this is the reality and the real reason that I focus to individual artists as a case study. You can talk about Picasso an hour as a marketer and entrepreneurial marketer. Yeah? because he is very popular and he do that. And now if we are talking about that, he's successful. But art is related with being successful. What's successfulness? Again, it's a term comes from business literature. So when we are talking about art, I think the individual and human side and the reality, and so sincerity is the correct term related with that core essence maybe. So if you are sincerely working on what you are doing and sincerely representing yourself, and if it has a value in time and place, it has a potential to take place in the huge art area. But if even it's not as sincere and it doesn't represent you and comes from lots of combinations, like an intelligence, artificial intelligence, if it comes from lots of data and you put together, so how we can talk about if it is really art or not? So it doesn't have any living and real life experiences. If these computers or machines can alive and behave as you have done, so it's possible maybe. But if they are not, just the best combination is not the art. So the best aesthetic figure is not related with the art. So it should include human and the reality of the humans. So if you find your reality and if your reality promises something to do new for you, and if you can believe that and go on that way in any conditions, even it is not legitimate for that days in short term, so it has a potential, I think. So every artist, we are saying artist, but this is also a discussion term. Who are the artists? So the time is going to give the answer maybe. So right now saying artist, yeah, we are saying using, because what we should say, I don't know, maybe another term, but so entrepreneurial marketers, maybe not, maybe yes, and in which combinations? So we have talked about the orientations, innovation orientation and customer orientation. Yes, entrepreneurial marketer contains all of them, but in which combination and in which way? So the answer. So all the artists have their unique way and their unique story, and in art industry it knows like that. If an artist dies and the process has occurred and right now, so the others can consider that right now. Because when the art is going on and the artist is going on with their lives, you cannot say anything and discuss something because the process hasn't done and it is not finished. So what is the things that you're going to talk about as a critics? Yeah, it's not maybe real because of that. Most of the artists become artists after many times later, because you can understand the whole process as a whole. One artwork, even if it's too much aesthetic, etc., creates lots of value for the others. You cannot say artwork. The artwork is a thing that is done by an artist. If there is no artist, you cannot talk about the artwork, isn't it? So the subject is more important than the object. So an artist creates their signature, puts their signature to anywhere to that room, for example, but there is a meaning for that. But if you put any of people put their signature to that, you cannot consider that as a value. Why? It's related with our perception about this artist. So a kind of brand, for example, brand and art, an artist is also another thing that we can consider in terms of business relation between art and commerce, maybe. Yeah, so the question can be considered in different perspectives.
So, not all art school graduates will end up being artists. Some will be working in small businesses down the line. I did a cultural value, HRC cultural value project in Scotland. Interviewed the convener of the annual art exhibition of Europe Research, and so he said, yeah, most of them have been working in design or small businesses and so on, rather than practicing art. I worked with other colleagues who developed an artist career development continuum. So my colleague Kim Lennon in Tasmania, for example. So I've worked with emerging artists, I've worked with more experienced artists and so on. But I think I really enjoyed your presentation. Obviously, I know more about it than some of us here because I've been working with you. But I think there are lessons here for government, for policy, education, because in the UK, the arts and humanities budgets have been decimated by government. Back in 1997, Tony Blair came to power, they were promoting cultural industries and so on. It's been decimated from school curriculum, which is very, very disappointing. There's been a focus more on promoting science subjects, but we can see today the connection between art and science, technology and all sorts of things.
Yeah, so for the emerging artists, the students of the art school, if they don't have a potential to protect and survive themselves economically, how they can do their artworks and go on that way. So they are going to be a staff in some professional businesses. So this is a dilemma again. Even they really want, sometimes they don't have a chance. So giving that chance by supporting that. So marketing art in any way is also works to create more artists and more individual unique insights.
I'm interested in what you say about the castle metaphor, because it kind of implies authenticity, the castle, and autonomy.
Yeah.
And as a boring lawyer, I think that we live in an age of increasing regulation. I say to my students, 10 years ago, you couldn't have imagined that people would be talking about laws to apply to Facebook, laws to apply to Google. So is it easier for the artist to maintain their authenticity and their autonomy than the entrepreneur in the sort of era that we're living in?
Yeah, sure. Both the castles work for that,
Yes.
and these windows works for that. Yeah, castles related with power and to make you protect. Yeah, but even you protect yourself, you need light in there. So this is important interaction with environment and individual. Nobody can talk about going outside of the environment totally and being an artist. You don't need. But interacting and getting something from the environment and trying to make the good combination with yourself as in your way. This is the only thing I think. So yeah. Authenticity, it should be safe, and also it creates value to make autonomy to protect that safe. Dilemmas so are in everywhere.
I wish we could stay up to 4:30 and beyond, but unfortunately, if there is any question, one last question last time, then after that, Ian will take over and summarize it and then offer our thanks to it. And then we... Thank you.
So Özge's going to be with us for another few months until the end of August next year. Yeah. So you'll see us coming back and forward to Redmond's from Rodney Street and vice versa and so on. So there are a number of other people in this room we're beginning to work with as well. Folks from the art school. And now conversations with Lucy from law and so on. And it's interesting to see how many people are here from different disciplines. This is about different lenses.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get in touch soon.
Yeah, the big thanks.
Please, there is excess lunch, so those of us who have not taken one will take, and there will still be excess. So
thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
So thank you very much for coming, and also thank you for your fantastic presentation.